I am speaking with Mayor Albers today. We're talking about the cold weather that's coming and what the city of Lloydminster, I guess, is planning to do to accommodate people. I've actually noticed across the street that we don't have quite as many people gathering already, so I'm assuming that they've gone somewhere. But can you tell me what's happening right now in light of what is coming?
Well, of course, we all know that winter is going to come sooner or later. And to your point in particular, I always want to remind people that the social services or human services files are the responsibility of the provincial governments, both Alberta and Saskatchewan, as well as the federal government has obligations to the First Nations people of this country. From that perspective, the city tries to ensure that people are looked after as best as we can, and that's a huge challenge because we don't have the budget capabilities that the respective provinces have, and that way we are working with the various nonprofit organizations in our community, and there's a number of them that are involved in helping people that need help, and the unhoused are certainly one of those groups that need assistance. So what we're seeing and hearing is that numbers of people that do not have a place to go today are decreasing. From that perspective, some have made alternate arrangements and found housing already or lodging. Others have left the community, and some are still in that transition period. Then there's some I understand that just aren't looking for. They're quite happy with what they have, or that's what they don't want to be housed as per se. So it's a challenge that we continue to monitor at the city. City administration is quite aware of the situation and is working as diligently as they can with the nonprofit groups and the governments to make that aware, as well as myself and council bringing it to the attention of the provincial governments, because this is a real challenge. It's a challenge that's gone on not in our province or provinces, it's across the country. I'm hearing that from Manitoba to British Columbia all the way to Newfoundland. So it's a challenge that's really showed its head in the last year or two more than it was. We've had unhoused for some time, but this number is just it's got to a number that's really tough to deal with.
As you were mentioning, there are different levels of government that have different responsibilities. One of the things that I have heard consistently from some of the frontline groups is that the Saskatchewan government in particular, and I'm not too familiar with the Alberta government's policies, but just with regard to how they pay out their social assistance clients changed a few years ago. And that has really led to what the advocates say is the skyrocketing in the homeless and unhoused population. Is there any lobbying that the city can do on that front, or what's your role there?
Well, we've actually had a fair amount of involvement, and certainly I've had more involvement at the level, the provincial level, with the SUMA organization as the vice president of cities, and had numerous conversations with ministers as well as media regarding the change from the way SIS and SED were provided to residents of Saskatchewan, no longer paying their landlords directly, but providing them with the money, encouraging them to be responsible. And certainly there's merits to that, but on the other side, we know not everyone is capable of managing their financial affairs for various reasons, and that's the issue we've raised with the provincial government. Is once someone has spent that money that they've been allocated, there's no more money, and if the landlord doesn't get paid, the landlord will remove that individual from their location. So this is a problem when we have these issues with money, the money management. And I know the government's has worked very hard, and we appreciate they've made some amendments to what they originally proposed, but I think there's still a little bit more work to be done on a provincial level, including in our city on the Saskatchewan side, to ensure that that money does the best value for those people, because like I say, not everyone is skilled at money management, and when you receive a lump sum and you go, okay, I can spend it wherever I want, but at the end of the day, if the rent isn't paid, you're going to find yourself likely being put out of wherever you're living.
One of the things we saw, and I mean, it happens in every major city when there are unhoused people, there's a certain amount of not in my backyard as far as where to put those people or to house those people. And we saw definitely a huge debate over the men's shelter when that issue raised its head. So I guess what is the city doing behind the scenes on that front?
So one of the reasons you saw such a large turnout at city council and discussions about the bylaw changes that were being proposed and were voted on was that that is a tough piece. Where is the right place to put services such as the men's shelter? They were sitting in a piece of property that was zoned, and that particular piece of property was zoned only for them, and in essence to serve the purpose of a men's shelter. What was brought forward was an increased area. We have multiple organizations, again, we talked about it earlier, in the city that serve various individuals. And because of the zoning and the nature of their business or nature of their service, they were not all zoned the same. So what we've tried to do is take a look at the city and say, okay, where can we potentially, if the men's shelter wanted to move, and that was one of the questions that resulted in that, as well as the warming center, where could they possibly move to? Because of the limitations of planning, they couldn't go anywhere. So we've tried to open up an area within the city, a number of zones that would allow them to potentially do that move if that's where they so choose. The discussion, it's a weighted discussion. There's multiple services outside the men's shelter that people are looking for. And that's a challenge if you put them at one end of the city and they have to transverse across the entire city to get to those other services, being healthcare, being mental health and addiction, be it, as we talked about, reaching social services or human services, versus can we somehow situate them closer? That was the purpose of the intent of the bylaw from that perspective. We've had numerous conversations, but numerous people asking, well, are we going to be putting up shelters everywhere? No, that's not the intention of the city. The city's there to help plan. That's simply what we facilitate. What the groups and organizations in the provinces decide to do, that would be, we just ask that they follow the planning process that was laid out. So it's a tough challenge, because where do we locate different items? And we're talking about the men's shelter, but we could talk about many of the other organizations in the community. Where's the ideal place to put them that gives their clients the ability to get the services they need, and as anyone else would be, while still managing people's private personal protection and the safety and public safety of the community.
All right, well, I do appreciate your time today, Mayor Albers. Is there anything I didn't touch on that maybe you wanted to make a point about?
No, this is one complex issue, as we've talked about, and there is not one single solution. Talking to the unhoused, I've had that opportunity, talking to businesses and residents in our community, trying to share ideas and talking to the provincial governments, both the MLAs and ministers. There's a multitude of people trying to work on this file, but it is complex, it's huge. There's not one solution to fix one particular problem. And again, cooperation between nonprofits is critical. Governments are critical, from municipal to provincial to federal. And that's one of the challenges, that we can't make everything. There's no magic formula on this one, that's for sure.
Yeah, perfect. Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Thank you.